Hey everybody, welcome back to the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Today's special guest is Justus Dixon. He has an awesome background as a bassist and band leader for the artist Juliet Sims. He has his own electronic dance project called the Bradbury Post, and he's worked on live Ableton rigs for bands like The Used and Sleeping with Sirens. We're extremely excited to have him on the podcast today. Yo, dude, that setup is very nice.
Thank you. It's a fun little setup.
How long did it take you to get all that together?
Years. Um, I mean, just collecting stuff just randomly. The latest thing actually is the big guy, the Prophet Rev 2. It's a 8 voice, not the 16 because I'm poor. And then the underneath somewhere is the chord chaos pad. Prophets are they're fun. It's a lot of like some of the 80s world and stuff like that. I think they were one of the first synths to where it was like the idea was you could save presets. So it was that idea of like you can make this thing or it'll come with presets and you can change them. I could be totally wrong, but I believe just from watching hours of YouTube and research before buying like a big synth, that was like, I think one of the things I overheard was like Dave Smith was one of the first ones to think we should save these things. That way, if you go on tour or you have a studio and you have the sound you like, you can keep it, you know.
Brilliant idea. Hey, I believe you if that's who it is.
Thanks. So someone can fact check and just,
Yes.
no,
Somebody will tell us we're wrong.
that's the beauty of the internet. That's what you do. You tell people they're wrong. So,
That is what a community is. So obviously you're very interested in analog synths. I want to start this off by asking you about Bradbury Post, which is your project, and you do everything on it, right?
yeah, well, that was just Bradbury Post has been something where it was just kind of an idea of just let's just make something because I've been doing the rock thing for such a long time and being in the alternative rock world and stuff like that. And on tour, you look for different things to listen to, and I was listening to a lot of like ambient type stuff, just some like just on the drive or on the plane, and um, got really into it and was like, oh, this would be a lot of fun to just try to make my own version of. And I just kind of threw it out, just like, yeah, why not? And you know, after just making it, but yeah, I did a lot of the yeah, I did everything from writing, sound design, mixing, mastering. It was just kind of some. It wasn't like a idea of like I have to do it all. I was just it's just kind of an experiment to see if I could do it. And you know, I was at the time I was happy with the results. And now I'm making more stuff, and I'm actually bringing people in and listening back to it. It's like, oh, I can't wait to show everyone what's gonna happen.
Nice.
Up to like at least like 5 levels.
Right on.
Yeah.
So with the EP that you put out as Bradbury Post, those 3 songs, how did you get started with those? Because I know I'm more of a singer-songwriter, and I've talked a lot to more singer-songwriters who have released projects in that way. But this, there's no lyrics. It's more of, 3 experimental dance electronic tracks. Where do you start with something like that?
Sometimes I'll like start off with the idea. Like I think the first one I put out, Dangers of the In Between, it was a completely other song. And then through just kind of just continuous tweaking, it was like I had like a drum idea and then a melody idea and I wasn't happy with it and then just kind of kept messing around with it. Like that lead melody thing that's like the quote unquote chorus, that was just a vocal sample of someone hitting a high C and was just kind of doodling around with that and came up with a melody. And from there it was like, oh, I have this whole thing like I have an idea and then just kind of went along with that. And then 96 was I just had this piano and was just like, oh, this is really cool, and just tried building something around that.
So it sounds like you have one seed of an idea almost, and then you're like, oh, this is sick. Let's build on top of it and then just see where this goes.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of just electronic music in general. I mean, I've been kind of tweaking with it and you know messing around with it for the like past. 5 years, and it's just pretty much been, and everybody I know is just like, it's just trial and error. It's like this works, or this doesn't work, and or this could be a thing, but we don't know. So you put it in a file and just hold it, and then you could be working on something, and all of a sudden it's that thing that you're needing, and you're like, oh, here it is, and then you put it in there, kind of thing.
What's something that doesn't work? Something you were like, oh shit, this is not actually sounding as cool as I thought it would.
Probably 9 out of the 10 ideas that I have actually. So the idea is like you can make like 100 songs, and then like out of the 100, maybe you have like five that are like, this is it. So at least for me, just for me, it's always trial and error, and just it was that really weird quote of like Thomas Edison, even though he didn't make a light bulb, it was like, oh, you failed 1,000 times to make a light bulb. And he's like, I didn't fail. I just found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Right.
So that's been kind of the approach.
So maybe a better question is, how do you know that something is worthwhile to keep working on and to finish?
Something I like, and also now with the Bradbury Post, it's there's one more member in it. Where by the time this airs, hopefully we'll have our singer. But it's been great going to his name's Jofin, and or he goes by John or Jofin, but it's been great going to someone like that who I've trusted, and I've actually toured, like when I was really starting to tour from LA and around. Um, we've been working together, and just having him there to hear things and go, this works or this doesn't work, or oh, I have this idea, and building on top of that. Because making stuff by yourself, it can be fun and really therapeutic, but having someone there, or someone you really trust, going, this works, or I'm not really feeling this, or but it's like that circle of people you trust enough.
Absolutely. It's a lot easier to work on music when you have somebody who you trust right next to you telling you like, oh no, maybe we should try this, or letting you know like, hey man, maybe that idea is not very good.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
let's move on.
Yeah, and for me it helped out a ton, just because I mean, since I was like 16, I've been in bands, and so you're always looking for that person to bounce something off of. Especially as a bass player, you're usually looking at the drummer going, what are you going to do, and they do their thing, and then you do yours, and if it mixes well together, it's great. And funny enough, he was the drummer in the band I was in when we were touring, and I was the bassist. So we've already kind of had that idea of, this is how we work together. It's kind of weird, but it's cool.
So what kind of advice would you have for somebody who's working on something by themselves that doesn't have somebody to bounce that off of? Because I know with the first three songs of Bradbury Post, it was all of you.
Continue to do it, like, and don't be afraid that not everything you put out is going to be the best thing ever, and you learn more from the mistakes than the successes, actually, at least in my personal experience.
Great advice. So when listening to the three songs, I couldn't help but feel like they would be perfect in some sort of like Safdie Brothers intense movie.
Yes.
Has
Yes.
scoring impacted how you make music, or do you focus on scores at all? Do they play any kind of part in your musical digestion?
I think in a weird subconscious way it does. My dad was actually a film and theater major, and so he growing up, music was always in the house, but film scores are his jam. I didn't know, I mean, as a kid, I didn't know how to appreciate it. I was just like, oh yeah, like I can see the movie in my head, just because I've watched the movie 1,000 times, let alone like Jurassic Park, for example. And he would have the record just playing in the car or something like that. So it was always just kind of there. I didn't really start exploring the idea of like, oh, like composing could be a fun idea, until I think later on in college, after I was in a music program, and then shifted just to balance school and then touring with I switched out of the music program to the audio engineering one, and we really dove into the idea of like you could compose and like what does that mean, and especially nowadays, because I mean, like Social Network had no orchestra really, and it was two dudes in a room full of boxes and wires and synths, and they just happened to be like some of the greatest like minds in rock and roll, you know, like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. But that was just somewhere I'd never thought would be a possibility. I was like, it would always be fun to do like something, and if I can, great, but you know.
Yeah, I mentioned Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross in a different interview, just and for the Social Network, because that soundtrack is incredible. But if you haven't done any film scores yet, man, it's only a matter of time because your stuff is perfect for it.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be fun if anybody's there looking for like a short film or something.
There you go. This is your guy, Justus Dixon. So you're also the band leader for Juliet Sims. I wanted to ask you exactly what kind of responsibilities fall on a band leader, especially when it's for a project that's under somebody else's name. It's not like a band necessarily.
Yeah, well, most of the time it's helping out in rehearsals, and it's essentially for the singer, it's like for someone like Juliet or like, you know, people who are like themselves as an artist and on a label, and they have like 1,000 things to do in a day when you're on tour. It's just having that one person there that can just focus on like the stage, making sure everything's there. We have what we need, you know, helping the band if she had notes or like I wasn't really feeling this, or is there a way we can add things? Um, you know, just kind of being that person that to where instead of like setting up a huge meeting with the whole team, it's having that person to where it's like, hey, let's help me navigate this. What are the ways we can make this better? Or, you know, is there something we need to scratch, or working with the band and, you know, going, hey, like, you know, we're doing great. You know, we need to keep this up, or we need to scratch this. And, you know, and at the end of the day, still give like you know, 12 out of 10. Cause you know, like that's your job. So
Right. What kind of skill set is required for something like that? Because the first thing I think of is being diplomatic, being able to get everybody on the same page, not ruffle any feathers, especially, you know, artists, musicians can all have their own weird personalities and quirks.
with Juliet, like she's great to work with. And it's always just we just have a conversation because we're both have this idea of like the show comes first, obviously on tour, and like what are the things we can do for it. So she'll say this is what she wants, and you know we do what we can to make it happen. And she loves letting the band have their moments to shine. So I think it kind of helps them to like we're all a part of it on stage, and we're all just having fun on stage. So that takes a lot of like the I don't want to say stress, but I don't know another word, but it just we always have fun on stage, and we try to essentially prepare that way we're not on stage kind of like freaking out like, oh, what do we do, you know what I mean? And if there is something that happens on stage, you know, I'll be the one to like a cable goes wrong or the tracks go out or something like that, like I'm the one going keep going, or you know, keeping everybody on pace kind of thing. And then we go and sit and talk about it, and you know, just go, hey, like, you know, we did it, we saw that this happened, what are ways that we can avoid that next time, or you know, things like that. So it's the mindset is just, you know, being able to pay attention. And I guess like if you're on stage playing, it's you're able to play, keep an eye out to what she's doing, keep an eye out what the band's doing, and you're kind of paying attention to everything. You don't have you have those moments where you can have fun and enjoy things, but at the same time, you're always keeping your eye out and, you know, making sure everything's the way that it should, you know, that way she's able to do her thing, and you know, it just looks like the whole thing's still going even if things are on fire. You know, yeah, it's multitasking a ton. So
That's got to be very complicated at times, I would think.
I mean, it depends on who you work with. Like I was saying with her, it's, you know, there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of prep, and like Lindsay and Evan, who are in the band, they kill it, and so does she. And so that there makes it so much more easier to just be like, all right, like we can, we got that down, so I don't have to worry about that. I can trust my band, or her band, to do what they need to do, let alone like, it's keeping an eye on everything else.
So we're talking about touring during 2020. I know you've toured a lot, and right now it's probably not happening for you. What's something you really miss about it? And then something you don't really miss about it?
I really miss performing. Um, that's the thing I really like. Sorry if you can hear my nephew in the background.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of the reasons why they do it, and if they do it for a long time, it's because they love just performing. It it's great. But I think the thing I don't miss is the same catering meal, where it's this weird chicken and sauce thing with like some greens. It's like, okay,
Just the most basic little meal you can get.
yep. So and yeah, I don't miss that.
Tour food is nothing to write home about.
Nope. So it's either that, or if you're doing a cross country thing, it's Applebee's, or if you find if you're feeling real fancy, and then
Yeah. Oh, Applebee's is fancy, man. Shout out to Applebee's.
the fanciest.
That's a treat.
It is. What was it, like a $2 margarita night that would happen one time?
That sounds dangerous.
Oh, with the whole entire like crew of like this big tour festival, everyone's just like, all
They're
right.
throwing down.
Oh, they were, and oh man. So,
Well,
you haven't
I'm
literally
really.
got kicked out of an Applebee's. So
You got kicked out of an Applebee's?
some people did. I didn't.
Some people.
And I was just kind of sitting watching, going, "This is a thing." Like, all right, like
So I'm really curious what building an Ableton rig means when you're talking about doing that for other bands, which you've done for Sleeping with Sirens and The Used, which is, kind of a big deal.
yeah.
What is an Ableton rig when in like a live situation, and how does one build one? How does one get the job of building rigs for other bands?
With Ableton, what you can do is you can do a lot with it in terms of like you can make music, you can do all these different types of things. Like it's not just for like it's all in the idea of you're making music, or it's more like you can make sounds. And you can have things do a ton of different things that I think a normal DAW you can't really do, or if you can, it's not as it doesn't come as natural. You would have artists like a lot of pop artists, to where if they rely on tracks, or if they rely on things running on automation with computers, Ableton's going to be the go-to, because it seems to be built more for that, compared to something like Pro Tools or Logic, or whatever you're using for that. So why you would need a rig, it just essentially is more the lines of, I think, to help put on the show. I like bands like Sleeping with Sirens and The Used. It was one of those things to where it's like it's just there for the show. If the thing went out, like that'd be bad. But at the same time, like they are a band that's been around long enough and are that incredible enough to just balls to the wall and do their thing. But it's great because you could have things like click and letting the singers know, here's the key, if they're the ones starting it out, kind of like there's no guitar or anything playing before them, kind of thing, to give them the root note. You can have that in the air, that way they can just do their thing. And for rock bands, that's all it is. It's great. And then just having that extra sound in the background, just to make four people sound like 10 at times, is a great tool, compared to a pop artist where everything is electronic, like all the drums, all the there's no guitar. It's like, well, unless you want to bring like those 12 keyboards and all the random shit that you use to like make the sounds for the drums, like Ableton's the thing that will have it all there. And I mean, everyone from like as poppy as like Billie Eilish to electronic as like Dead Mouse, and then to like I don't know, like rock bands. Like it's just a really great tool to help things, essentially either help the show or become the show, if that makes sense. It all depends on what it is you want.
Yeah, it sounds like it can be a really great backbone for creating a live show. Like, okay, you do have guitars and drums and bass and a singer, but if you are producing music in the studio that has a lot more than that, maybe weird samples or reverse sounds, you're not going to be able to, produce those man-made on stage. So you're building these rigs that kind of accompany the band when they're playing live.
Exactly. It's supposed to be the thing that's a part of the band, but is in the background, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you nailed it.
I had no clue what that meant when I saw that on your Instagram. So I was like, I have to ask about this.
Okay.
So my last question here before we move on to the last five is about Mosaic. I know you've played with Mosaic before and you've been involved with them for a while, and they're a church affiliated band. I wanted to ask you if there's any sort of unique challenges or benefits from playing with a band that's affiliated with a church, because I know you've been involved with so many different kinds of projects. So is this any different in any other way?
I deeply care and love everyone at Mosaic. Like the team that I got to work with, they're some of the coolest people that I've ever gotten a chance to work with, and I still want to. It's I actually had to move out of town because I was touring so much. I'm up in Bakersfield right now.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'm actually moving back to Lagoon Niguel on Saturday. But just with the traveling and everything, it was just kind of harder to keep in touch and reach out with them. There's Mosaic, and then before I moved to LA, I was in a band that was kind of doing it was like Switchfoot kind of thing that we were trying to shoot for, to where it's like we're affiliated with this, but like that's not going to be the thing that, like, in terms of a business sense, pigeonholes it. Like we're not just going to play and open up for like Christian bands, which we did, and then we also opened up for we toured with like Imagine Dragons and Walk the Moon before anybody knew who they were at that point, like 2012, like right before like Radioactive wasn't even their single, and we were opening up for them, kind of thing.
Whoa.
There's not a lot of difference. But there is a thing to where I think in terms of like there's Christian music and then there's worship kind of thing. And so it's like there's different, they're similar, but they're different in terms of like what it is you're doing. If you're doing like Christian music, it's more the lines of like you're given this show and you're creating it for an audience that, is looking for, I guess, like a bit more positive message, or like they just want that space with people who are believers as well, and to experience this thing, and, just creating a space to where they can do that and just have a good time.
I think one of the only sort of Christian bands I have listened to and actually saw them open up for the Goo Goo Dolls was Switchfoot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I mean, there's a whole scene of that. Like, if you just look Tooth and Nail records, like Amberlin, Under Oath, like I was saying, and I'm blinking out on the rest of them. There's a really fun one. Family Force 5, they had one of the best shows you could see. It was just the most ridiculous thing ever. But it was just in terms of like, hey, like, we're all believers, or even if you're not, that's cool. Like, come hang, we're just going to have fun, and just have a great time and do the show, to where like the idea of like, we're going to do a worship set is you're there to worship, you know what I mean? And whatever the bells and whistles are there, that should or should not matter, I think, to an extent. And that's, what we were doing with Mosaic, to where it's like, we want to create this atmosphere and environment for people in order to come together and do that, and have it be something special for them to experience. But whether it's in front of like, again, all the bells and whistles, or an acoustic guitar and like an OP1, because why not, it was still trying to reach for the same thing, if that makes any sense.
I would imagine the rehearsal schedule would be pretty rigorous if you're doing multiple worship services a week, right?
Yeah, I mean, usually like with a church, you're usually doing the same set, 4 to 5 songs kind of thing. And so you made up maybe once to twice a week, and when you play at a church, at least in my experience, because I was also in between Juliet and Mosaic, I actually was working at a church in my hometown. It was the church I grew up in, and I was their music director and putting together the worship sets, putting the bands together, and building their whole Ableton rig. I was over like 50 songs.
Woo!
And all those stems, and that was a fun time.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, but it was essentially like you meet up and you have people on the team that trust as people and you trust as musicians, meaning like they can do their thing, they'll sit down, they'll pay attention, they know what they're doing, and then you continue there. And it's weird with Mosaic because like you're in like the heart of Hollywood. Everybody and their mom is either in a band or an actor, or you know what I mean. So there was just a huge variety of people, and that was one of the beautiful things about it. Or it is one of the beautiful things about it. But it's then accountability and like your reasonings for being there kind of thing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, bringing everybody together.
Yeah, good time.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to take us to the Fast Five. I'm just going to ask you 5 quick questions. You give me your honest response, and then we'll be out of here.
All right.
All right. So the first one is the favorite live show you've ever attended.
Because I'm a little fanboy, The Used, and there's a local band when I was out of high school, my buddies were in, called The New Post, and it was every show there was a guitar that was broken or the whole stage was a wreck, but it was like a beautiful mess.
Very intense.
Yeah, it was very intense, but it was one of those things like it wasn't like those metal bands that you watch and it's like this is a car wreck. It was more like there's just a lot going on. You can't help but like continue watching kind of thing. They put on a great show. They had 2 singers. One of them is now the bass player and I believe singer of a band called Silent Planet, Thomas Freckleton. So, and he owns a music shop here in Bakersfield. So shout out to Bakersfield Sound Co. So,
Yeah, shout out to Bakersfield. All right, well, let's go to the second question. Who to you is the most underrated artist?
I would say John Hopkins, probably. Artists like John Hopkins and that genre of music, to where it was a huge influence on the Bradbury Post. I would love to see that kind of music be more discussed and listened to in the States. I know in like parts of Europe, there's like these little niches of that kind of music, and there is that here. It'd be so great, and I think just a fresh thing that I think would be really great to have on everybody's mind.
Okay, John Hopkins. I'll check him out.
Yeah. So.
All right, third question. Who's your dream artist or producer to work with?
Artist Jack White and producer Justin Meldal Johnson.
Dude, Jack White is sick. Third Man Records is awesome.
Yeah, that was always my dream. Like as a bass player, that's what I've always wanted to do. So let's play.
Who was the other guy you said?
Justin Meldal Johnson. He is he's a guy I kind of want to be when I grow up is the joke. But he was Beck's bass player in MD for a long time, like at the beginning of his career till like I think 2015, 2016, maybe a little later. And then he produced M83's Hurry Up We're Dreaming and the records that came out before that. He did the last 2 Paramore records. I know the latest Jimmy Eat World record. I can't remember. Yeah, the last 2 or 3. I can't remember. I'm a horrible fan, but like he's done a lot of amazing things, and he was one of those guys I've looked up to a lot, to where he combined my 2 loves as well of bass guitar and synthesizers. And he was one of those guys to where, if I could sit down and pick his brain, or, have that fun time just working together, whether we're making a record or just shooting the breeze, whatever, just be fun.
So did he produce the M83 record, Hurry Up We're Dreaming? Or is he like he's not the guy in M83 though, is he?
No, that is, I believe his first name is Anthony. I can't remember the last name off the top of my head, But those were the two that were sitting down and making the record, and he was the one helping him out with that. I know he played a lot of bass and guitar in the record and helped out with a lot of the synth programming and sound design.
Gotcha. That is an epic album.
It's a great album.
All right, fourth question. Playing live or in the studio?
Playing live.
Yeah, you didn't hesitate.
Oh yeah. I love studio stuff, but to each their own. Just for me, live was the thing that got me started, and just that thing I think I will try to do for as long as I live in some way, shape, or form.
That's a great way to put it. It's very exhilarating.
Mm-hmm.
All right, final question. What is the one piece of equipment you can't live without? I know you've got a lot.
Like, is it I have that the whole time, or if I'm like stranded on an island?
You're stranded on an island. Okay, we'll allow the computer.
Oh, if it's the computer, then the OP1 would be fun. But if it was like one piece and I was stranded on an island, an acoustic guitar, I guess,
Fair enough. OP1 would be pretty sick to have on a desert island too.
Till the battery runs out.
Oh, that's true. Let's just say there's a palm tree with a charge in it.
Oh yeah, let's bring the OP1 and the acoustic. I can make a whole record with that.
That would be pretty sick. Just take little samples of the ocean waves and the breeze.
Yeah, there's someone who's most likely going to do that now. So if they haven't already.
Yeah, don't take our idea. Thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again soon, bro.
Dude, thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course. So. It was awesome. I was excited that you wanted to do this. Justus Dixon, thank you again, man. I'll see you soon.
See you soon, buddy.
Peace.
Bye.